Kathy, can we have roll call, please?
Ron Buckholz,
Present.
Tweet Schuman,
Here.
Kay Wilson, Marshall Savitsky, Steve Carrianen. Thank you.
Okay. Number B, Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Statement of committee hearing and procedures for the statement of the hearing notice, the full statement committee, and the public or hearing procedure documents included in directions for individuals wishing to speak at a public hearing to be conducted at this zoning committee meeting are available in the back of this room next to the agenda for today's meeting. The statement of committee and hearing procedure documents is hereby incorporated into the record for this committee meeting. Any public hearing conducted at today's committee meeting has been published as a Class 2 notice in accordance with Chapter 985 of the Wisconsin statutes, and in the Sawyer County Record and Sawyer County Gazette as posted. Okay, number D, I need a motion to approve the minutes of the November 15th meeting, please.
I'll make that motion.
And I'll second it.
We have a motion by Ms. Wilson, a second by Mr. Savitsky to approve the November 15th meetings. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries to approve. Number E, public comment. Please note this time is intended for the general public, not comments related to a specific application before this committee. Each agenda item requiring a public hearing will have its own public hearing conducted just prior to the application being considered by this committee. If you wish to speak on a specific agenda item, we encourage you to wait until that time.
We're already standing there, Don Robinson. If you want to submit your public comments, you can do so now.
Because otherwise I'll forget what I'm talking about.
State your name and address, Mr. Robinson, please.
Yes, okay, my name is Don Robinson. I live at 15024 W Highway B in Hayward here. I own Lake Chippewa Campground. That's who I'm representing with my comments. I'm asking the county to remove the restriction on camper cabins and licensed campgrounds only. And the rule change I'm asking about concerns allowing camper cabins to be placed on campsites that have full hookup with sewer, water, and electric. These are only in licensed campgrounds that already have those facilities. For those of you that are not familiar, this is something that most of the counties and even the state allow now, is to have a facility, and I'll try and explain exactly why. For those of you that are not familiar, camper cabins are similar to park model trailers. They are not built on wheels, and they are built on skids so they can be moved to one place or another. As a rental unit, they are subject to the room tax, so they generate a fair amount of revenue for each town. And their purpose is to provide low-cost camping for people who, for one reason or another, they're either young people who have camped with their families for years, and now they're either married or they're in a situation where they want their own privacy, and yet they want to be able to stay with their families when they're camping. And they may be in school or whatever. Generally, they're just starting out, so they don't have quite the money that others have. The other thing is too, for older people, sometimes they maybe don't camp as much as they did when they were younger, not enough to own their own campers any longer. So they still want to be with the camping families. And so this is an option for them to have a room of their own and with a bathroom facility, because those of us that are a little bit older know that you have to get up in the middle of the night and go to the bathroom. You don't have to get dressed and go to the central bathroom facility if you don't have to. So that's pretty much the main thing. Their camper cabins are a little more simple. They're not designed to have full kitchens and all that type of thing, and they're not on wheels, so they're quite a bit cheaper to purchase for the campground. And that way we can also rent them at a cheaper price. And so they're easier in most ways or whatever as far as keeping clean and so on. They just don't have kitchens and the whole bit there or whatever. So that's my concern, I guess. I'm asking the county board whether they would consider removing that restriction so that in licensed campgrounds only, we can put camper cabins on full hookup sites. So I don't know if there's any questions or.
We can't respond.
Okay.
Robinson, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Linda Zilmer? Try to keep it to 3 minutes, Linda. I'm not lying.
Mr. Buckholz, you entertain for other people and you always, I'm sure that this last one went more than 3. And so if you would entertain me for a little extra time, because I did not anticipate having to comment to this, what was just brought up previous to me. There are emerging issues in the county that in the past, a better way of bringing them forward is when the zoning department is aware of something that's coming up. And Mr. Robinson is well known to the county and he's been here before with his own issues, that emerging issues should probably be added at under new business, just like you'll be talking about commercial storage condo units and tourist rooming houses. And then the staff has time to inform you about what your ordinance is, what's being done in other counties, and then the issue can be brought forward by whoever's looking for you to make changes. I don't know that that's appropriate, or the best use of public comment. My public comment that I intended to try and cover in 3 minutes had to do with the history of the Multi-Dwelling Development Ad Hoc Committee. This has been going on since, I believe, at least 2022. Some of you have been around since then, and some of you are newer to this. But you are inheriting a mess that has been going on for years. And the reason I want to give this history is because a name recently resurfaced. It was a former chair of this committee, Jesse Betcher. Jesse Betcher and the 2 people that nominated him and seconded to make him chair of this committee kind of changed the course of how zoning in this committee has served the public. There was a clampdown on very limited or no public comment, issues of zoning ordinance amendment. The public was not allowed to speak to it at the end of the committee meetings. Towns were even writing letters to the county about how towns were being lost in the process. So multi-dwelling development language or zoning ordinance amendments started way back then. The zoning committee, you are the policymakers who are actually should be drafting the ordinance amendment changes. There was no discussion at the committee level. And again, I believe it had to do with leadership of the committee and the 2 people who were formerly on this committee who are no longer serving here. Even when Andy Phillips stepped in during the gap when Rebecca returned to, I believe it was the DOT, he made comments to the zoning committee members at that time. Well, we can just keep coming back month after month. The zoning administrator was presenting draft language to this committee that did nothing. They would not entertain public comment. So you've had 2 failed attempts to get amendments out there. And now there's the creation of an ad hoc committee. Towns that, and along with other process concerns, have been asking for the county to work better and more efficiently with towns. I believe during the tourist rooming house committee process, the county administrator suggested that, well, gee, if maybe he got a letter from the towns, then the county could do something. Well, at this summer's Wisconsin Towns Association unit meeting in Sand Lake, there was overwhelming, I didn't hear any negative comments about sending a letter to the county. The 3 issues that the towns are concerned with are zoning processes, how these zoning ordinance amendments come through your committee, and then get sent to the towns. And then finally zoning enforcement. And none of that is addressed in the MDD ad hoc committee. And I'm not blaming you because you did not sit there and define the scope of what that committee was going to do. You approved the concept in October, and it was the administrative committee that defined the scope. So I hope that more things than multi-dwelling development get worked on, that you allow the towns and public comment so that you can finally put these zoning ordinance amendments to bed. Thank you.
Thank you, Zilmer. All right, does anyone else out there want to speak in public comment?
Anyone online wishing to make public comment for a non-agenda item? Seeing no hands raised, we'll move into rezone applications. This is a public hearing, the town of Coudray, rezone number 24-014. Owner Mary Slizchuka, part of the northeast one quarter, the northwest one quarter. It's lot 2 of CSM number 8522, tax ID 44181, which is 31.4 acres, zoned residential, recreational 2, and agricultural 1. Purpose of the request is to rezone approximately 24.32 acres south of the Coudray River from residential recreational 2 to agricultural 1. This would then allow for existing agricultural use buildings to remain on the property with a pending sale to the land north of the river. The Shoreline Wetland Overlay District is not subject to change as part of this request. As part of my staff report, and give me a second as I play around with the new agenda software. It's always a little bit of a learning experience here, but I think I got her. So again, the applicant is requesting a rezone approximately 24.32 acres from residential recreational 2 to agricultural 1. A preliminary survey map has been conducted to show the accurate acreage amounts that would be subject to the rezone request. This property has been actively engaged in an agricultural use for several decades. It is unknown why this property was ever rezoned to RR2, but it would appear that it was probably part of the comprehensive rezone process back in the mid-70s. In any case, the applicant is now interested in selling the house associated with this property that's north of the river, which is currently zoned RR2. When the proposed lot split and sale of land was proposed to the Sawyer County Zoning Conservation Department, it was observed that if this split was to occur, the accessory structures would be on a vacant, separate piece of land that is zoned RR2, and this would not be allowed. In order for this split to occur, it was recommended that the applicant would either need to build a dwelling on that portion that's south of the river or to rezone that portion to agricultural 1, as that these are agricultural buildings that are actively engaged in agricultural use. The A1 zone district was chosen because there is immediately adjacent agricultural 1 land in the immediate vicinity as to not be viewed as spot zoning. The current surrounding land use is forestry, light residential, and light agricultural. The town of Coudray, as part of their comprehensive plan, does show this area as both agricultural and forestry residential. The forestry residential intent is to keep 1 single-family dwelling per 5 acres of land. Ultimately, if this property that is currently zoned RR2 would require less than the 5-acre minimum, with the proposed request to Ag 1, it would have the 5-acre minimum. So no additional dwellings are proposed at this time. As part of motion of the town board, motion was approved. Jim Bassett, Phil Miles. No additional comments. Side Charlie Warner, town clerk. 6 additional notification letters sent out to adjacent property owners. 1 was returned with no objections and sent to the members of this committee. Did the committee have a chance to read that comment?
Yes.
Acknowledging that the committee has received and read that comment, therefore be it incorporated into the record. That is all.
Okay. I need a motion to go into public hearing on rezone number 24-014, please.
I'll make that motion that we go into public hearing 24-014.
And I'll second that.
We have a motion by Mr. Schulman and a second by Mr. Savitsky to go into public hearing on rezone number 24-014. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. We are now in public hearing. The applicant on.
Mary or Corey, would you like to give any comments, or you're muted on your side?
Hi, Mary, Sliz Chucka and Corey Chucka. Sorry we couldn't make it today due to illness. Yes, everything that we are planning is just to break off that portion of the property so we can continue to have cows and farmland on it. And we would like to sell the property north of the river. We don't plan on building any houses or anything. We just wanted to keep the barn on the property as it is.
Okay. Mr. Schuman, you got a question?
Oh, geez, sorry.
Anybody have any questions for the applicant?
I'm Dee Dee Whitnick. I own the property across Highway C from the proposed rezone. And I'm just verifying, so it would continue to be used the way it's used right now, just as agricultural barn, no gravel pits or anything like that, correct?
That is correct. No gravel pits, no homes, nothing like that. We just want the cows to stay there.
Okay, but for what it's worth, I have no objection. So thank you for letting me talk.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
All right. Anyone out there wants to speak in favor of this rezone? Or anyone out there wants to speak in opposition of this rezone? If not, I need a motion to come out of public hearing on rezone number 24-014.
So moved.
We have a motion by Ms. Wilson, and second by Mr. Kiriainen to come out of public hearing on rezone number 24-014. Any more? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. We are now out of public hearing.
This is the discussion action in the town of Coudray, rezone number 24-014, owner Mary Sliz Chucka. Legal description is previously read into record. Request is to rezone approximately 24.32 acres south of the Coudray River from residential recreational 2 to agricultural 1. Again, the shoreline wetland overlay district is not subject to change as part of this request.
Okay, committee, we turn it over to you for your decision.
I'll make a motion to approve rezone 24-014 and finding of fact 1 through 14 excluding number 8 and number 14.
Okay. We have a motion by Ms. Wilson to second. And a second by Mr. Schuman to approve the rezone number 24-014. Any more discussion? Not, Kathy, can we have recall, please? Or roll call recall.
Yes, I just want to say number 8 and number 14 to remove.
Right.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Ron Buckholz,
Yes.
Kay Wilson.
Yes.
Tweet Schuman.
Yes.
Marshall Savitsky.
Yes.
Steve Kirianen.
Yes.
All in favor. Thank you.
All right, moving on. This is a public hearing in the town of Coudray, rezone number 24-015, owner James Mead, part of government lot 3 of lot 2 of CSM 8412. That is 6.10 acres, zone forestry 1, and part of the southwestern quarter of lot 1 of CSM 8776. Just tax ID 45111. That is 6.1 total acre zone. That's a little off. It's 3.56 total acres of forestry 1 for a grand total of 9.66 acres, zone forestry 1. Request is to rezone that 9.66 acres from forestry 1 to residential recreational 2 to be able to create new lots. The shoreline wetland district is not subject to change as part of this request. Again, per the staff report, the purpose of the request is to rezone approximately the 9.66 acres of combined acreage between the two lots from forestry 1 to residential recreational 2. The purpose of this rezone then would be to further subdivide the 6.1 acre lot into another building site for potential sale. Again, the shoreline wetland district is not subject to change as part of this request. The F1 zone district minimum requirements would need 5 acres and 300 feet of width along the river. Thus, the zone district change is being requested. With approval of the rezone, it is anticipated that 1 new lot would be created and sold in the northwest corner of lot 2 of the CSM 8412. The remaining land is not being proposed for future subdivision, but different lot configuration might occur as that there is an equal share between three property owners. I believe there are three brothers that own the properties together. The Town of Coudray Comprehensive Plan shows this area as actually as tribal. The tribal designation is given in that the land is within the reservation agreement boundary, but this is a non-tribal member and is still subject to the Sawyer County zoning requirements. The Town of Coudray does not have a standalone comprehensive plan. The town has only incorporated the future land use map as part of the Sawyer County comp plan. When and whether these areas should be rezoned, it should be at the discretion of the Town of Coudray and Sawyer County on a mutually agreed decision. With that being said, there are other properties in this location, specifically to the north, which is across Highway E, and to the west across the Billy Boy River, which is also the Coudray River. Which is also zoned RR2, as this would not be viewed as spot zoning. The zoning committee's recommendation should take the town's decision into consideration when looking at the proposed rezone request. The surrounding use of the area is light residential and forestry. As part of the town board, motion was approved. Jim Bassett, chairman, Phil Miles, supervisor. No additional comments. I signed Charlie Warner, town clerk. There were 6 additional notification letters sent out to adjacent property owners. One was, oh, sorry, I'm on Chukka still. Hold on. Motion still was approved. Jim Bassett, Phil Miles, no additional comments, Charlie Warner. There were 9 additional notification letters sent out. 2 were returned, both with objections. Those were sent to the committee members. Do the committee members have a chance to read those additional comments?
Yes.
Acknowledging that the committee had a chance to read those comments, therefore be it incorporated into the record. The one other aspect I do want to briefly discuss with the committee on this is there is a pending lawsuit for a portion of the land associated with this rezone. However, there has not been a final judgment on that. When we initially spoke with legal counsel, and legal counsel is on here now. I'll just show you the portion of land that I guess is in the pending litigation. There's a discrepancy with some surveys that were conducted. So it's basically this 100-foot wide portion, if you can see on the screen, this 100-foot wide by the entire depth here, that's kind of subject to the pending litigation as to who actually has ownership of that. Currently, our records right now would show that the Meads own it, but the adjacent property owner also has potential deeds that show that they own it. So I wouldn't want the committee to get caught up in that litigation. If this is ultimately rezoned as part of the rezone process to RR2, there wouldn't be any other additional impact, because even if this land was court ordered to go back to a different property owner, it would still be a conforming zone district. It would still be a conforming lot requirement. So you should be looking specifically at the merits of the rezone itself and not super involved with the litigation aspects. And I'll let Rebecca comment on that if there are additional questions. That is all.
Okay, Rebecca, we have your input on this before we go into public hearing, please.
Sure. Jay summarized well. There is pending litigation. I checked the court record again this morning. There is no final order that would be binding on the county and therefore restrict your ability to make a rezone decision. So there are a lot of different legal elements to this, which I don't think I need to go into in detail unless you'd like me to. But at this point in time, just know that the county is free to make a decision on this rezone request. And if a order or some sort of injunction was filed with the court, that may change before this goes to the board. But at this point in time, the county is able to proceed. Again, if you have any questions or would like me to go into more detail on the legal issues, please let me know.
You guys okay with what she? Okay, all right. Thank you, Rebecca. I got one other question before we go into public hearing.
Mhm.
The tribe doesn't have to have any input on this because it's part of tribal land or? wanna make
So the tribe portion of it is within the reservation agreement boundary, and the comprehensive plan for the town of Coota Ray, basically that's what their overlay shows. They just show it as tribal. What, that is the case, but there is no immediately adjacent tribal land. They might have actually got a letter, and let me look to see who's all sent notifications. Beyond. It should be on this one. Oh, it's the front sheet. Yeah, so the tribe was sent a notification letter. There is tribal land within 300 feet subject to this rezone request, but again, it's within the reservation agreement boundary, but there's thousands of properties that are within the reservation agreement boundary that are not owned by tribal members or owned by the tribe. They're owned by other citizens. This is somewhat common, and if they are not a tribal member and they are not within the reservation agreement boundary, they are still under county zoning requirements.
All right, thank you, Jay. All right, I need a motion to go into public hearing on rezone number 24-015.
I'll make that motion.
We have motion by Mr. Savitsky
I'll second that.
and a second by Mr. Kiriainen to go into public hearing on rezone number 24-015. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. We are now in public hearing for that rezone. Are there any of the Meads here? You step forward, sir.
I'm James Mead.
Can we have your address, please?
It's my home address or the property address?
Home address.
Home address, okay. 1904 Garden Drive, Janesville, Wisconsin.
Okay, is there anything you would like to say to the committee?
Well, the whole aspect of it is, we were just gonna take the lot two, cut off one chunk of property to create a sale of one lot. And it maybe at some point, take the, out of lot one, maybe just split it, for, an added trailer that we could put a trailer on it. Cause then it'd be a separate lot. So then we could put another trailer on it.
Okay. Anyone have any questions for the applicant? Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Is there anyone out there that'd like to speak in favor of this rezone? Is there anyone out there that likes to speak in opposition? Nobody has their hand up online, Andy, do they? Okay. All right, I need a motion to come out of public hearing on rezone number 24-015, please.
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion by Mr. Savitsky. Do I have a second?
Second.
And a second by Mr. Helwig, sorry. By Mr. Schuman to come out of public hearing on rezone number 24-015. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. We are now out of public hearing.
This is the discussion action for the town of Coota Ray, rezone number 24015, owner James Mead. Legal description is previously read into record. The request is to rezone approximately 9.66 acres from forestry 1 to residential recreational 2 for the intent to be able to create additional lots. The shoreline wetland overlay district is not subject to change as part of this request.
Okay, all right, committee, turn it over to you.
I'll make a motion
Savitsky.
to approve rezone number 24-015, including findings of facts 1 through 14, excluding number 8 and number 14.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
And a second by Ms. Wilson to approve the rezone number 24-015. Any more discussion?
Yeah, I guess number 8, why do we always avoid number 8? Can I ask that question?
Yeah, go ahead.
So
Provide
ultimately, I mean,
adequate
this,
light and air. So does that mean they cannot have solar collectors or wind energy? systems within this rezone?
No, it's ultimately that it was just not discussed as part of why you made your motion. I mean, the
Oh.
findings of facts are a guide as to why you reached your decision for either approval or denial. And, ultimately, we didn't discuss or nothing was brought to evidence, or I'll even say to light and use the pun intended. There was nothing brought to light that it would provide additional lighting or wind energy systems. So you can exclude those if you're not discussing them per your motion making.
Thank you.
Okay. Kathy, can we have roll call, please?
Kay Wilson. Marshall Savitsky.
Yes.
Ron Buckholz.
Yes.
Steve Carriennen. Tweet Schuman.
Yes.
All in favor. Thank you.
It's moving on. This is a public hearing in the town of Radisson, rezone number 24-016, William and Timothy Kehoe. This is as the southwest one quarter, the southwest one quarter, and the southwest one quarter, the southeast one quarter, east of the river, both in section 22, township 38 north, range 7 west. Tax IDs are 22699 and 22697. It is 40 total acres and, 40 acres and 14.39 for a total of 54.39 total acres, which are currently zoned residential recreational 1. Purpose of the request is to rezone the entire 54.39 acres from RR1 to agricultural 1 to allow for proper zoning and use of the property for farming and future expansion of farming. The Shoreline Wetland District overlay is not subject to change as part of this request. As part of my staff report, again, the intent is to rezone the 54.39 acres of RR1 to agricultural 1. This property has been actively engaged in agricultural use with the keeping of livestock since 2018. In conversations with the applicant, the previous owner pre-2018 had livestock on the property. And when Mr. Kehoe purchased the property in 2018, he continued raising beef cattle in this location. It was brought to the attention of the Sawyer County Zoning and Conservation Department that there were cattle in this location, yet the property is currently zoned RR1, which would be an illegal use. Mr. Kehoe received a letter from our office that he would either need to be approved the rezone to the agricultural 1 zone district or must cease and desist the keeping of livestock on this property. Mr. Kehoe has applied for the rezone and was unaware that it was an illegal use of the zone district and that cattle have been on the property prior to him even purchasing. Mr. Kehoe would also like to potentially expand the agricultural use of this land, so is also requesting the rezoning of the additional 40 acres. Maps are included in this packet that show the existing pasture land, as well as the potential expansion area. All cattle are to remain fenced beyond 75 feet from the river. Currently, I believe there are 9 cattle on this property, with potential up to 40 cattle in the future. Again, all cattle are to be fenced from the river. Currently, they're at a distance of approximately, I believe it was 100 feet. You can grab that information from Mr. Kehoe. I thought I had a map. They're about 80 feet from the river right now is where the existing fence is. The existing surrounding land use is light residential and predominantly agricultural. The town of Radisson, as part of their town comprehensive plan, shows this area as forestry residential with mixing agricultural throughout the same area. The forest residential category are areas where the town has seen growth in residential development as anticipated to continue to see this activity on privately owned forested lands. As part of the motion of the town board, motion was approved. Phil Quaid, chairman, I should say. Robert Billiard, supervisor. Ronald Kinsley, supervisor. No additional comments. Signed Patty Simonson, town clerk. There were 9 additional notification letters sent out to adjacent property owners. 0 were returned with any additional comments. That is all.
Okay. All right, I need a motion to go into public hearing on rezone number 24-016.
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman. We go into public hearing on rezone 24-016.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Schuman
I will second that.
and a second by Mr. Carrieinen to go into rezone or go into public hearing on rezone number 24-016. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. We are now in public hearing. Is the applicant here? You want to step forward, sir, and talk to the committee? State your name and address for the record.
William Kehoe, 3341 North River Drive, Radisson, Wisconsin.
Okay, is there anything you want to tell the committee or on your behalf or?
No, that's just, like, everything was basically explained by Mr. Kozlinski here is, we bought the place, there was livestock there, we just, we didn't right away in 18, I think it was 19 when we got it, and we got the cattle and just continue raised them and didn't think nothing of it. I mean, I didn't even know it was residential agriculture or residential recreational. I thought we live in the country. I mean, I thought it was agriculture. So we bought a farm.
Yeah, okay. Committee have any questions for the applicant?
Yeah, I guess I do. Jay, do they have to address that fence line they got at 80 feet versus 100? Or is that a condition or no?
It's not, and it's something you really wouldn't be able to condition. Now, ultimately, I mean, DAGCAP has other requirements of, cattle using waterways. From a zoning and conservation perspective, we would definitely want to see them, outside of 75 feet have another water source. You really don't want cattle down in that area. And it is currently fenced, and in conversations with the applicant, they were going to keep that fencing up and then even continue it. So that they wouldn't be getting any closer than when they currently are. And as of the aerial mapping, it is approximately 80 feet from the river right now is where the fence line is.
So then we're talking of maybe 40 more cattle in the future?
He asked when I filled out the application, I was like, I don't know. We're growing slowly.
Sure.
It's not going to be an instant 40. I mean, maybe by the time I retire.
And that expansion would be further back anyways, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. No one has any more questions for him? Thank you. All right, does anyone out there want to speak in favor of this rezone? Anyone out there want to speak in opposition of this rezone? Any hands up, Andy? All right, thank you. So I need a motion to come out of public hearing on rezone number 24-016.
I'll make that motion.
Mr.
To come out of
Schuman.
public hearing.
I'll second that.
We have a motion by Mr. Schuman and a second by Mr. Savitsky to come out of public hearing on rezone number 24-016. Any more discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. We are now out of public hearing.
This is the discussion action in Town of Radisson, rezone number 24-016, William and Timothy Kehoe. Legal description is previously read into record. The request is to rezone approximately 54.39 acres from residential recreational 1 to agricultural 1 for the proper zoning district for the keeping of livestock and additional expansion of a farming operation. Shoreline Wetland District overlay not subject to change as part of the request.
Okay,
Okay, I'll make a motion. Oh, sorry, Steve.
go ahead, Steve.
Okay, yeah, I would make a motion to approve the rezone application number 24-016 to rezone approximately 54.39 acres from residential recreational 1 to agriculture. A1.
And finding of fact?
Yeah, finding of facts 1 through 14.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr.
Second.
Gearing and a second by Mr. Schuman to approve the rezone number 24-016. Any more discussion? Okay, can we have roll call, Kathy, please?
Ron Buckholz,
Yes.
Kay Wilson.
Yes.
Tweet Schuman,
Yes.
Marshall Savitsky,
Yes.
Steve Carrianen. All in favor. Thank you.
Moving on to conditional use permit applications this is the public hearing in the Town of Weirgard, conditional use permit number 24-023, owner Margaret Gerber, agent Patrick and Deborah Longmire, part of government lot 3 of lot 1 of CSM number 8329. It is 1.03 total acres owned residential recreational 1. Purpose of the request is to remove the restrictive covenants that was placed on this property in 2019. to allow for a garage to be built on a separate vacant lot not containing a dwelling. It states that lots cannot be sold separately unless the structure is removed or otherwise resolved. The potential buyer and owner want to apply for what we would almost view this now as an after-the-fact conditional use permit to approve an existing garage on a vacant lot, and then be given a 3-year time frame to apply for a land use permit to build a new dwelling on this lot within that permit time frame. This would be as per the Sawyer County Code of Ordinances, Appendix D, Section 4.26, Parent 1, with automatic conditions. As part of the staff report, this one's a little bit interesting, but I think it's probably the cleanest way to do this. So again, the purpose of the request is to remove the restrictive covenants. The restrictive covenants is a document that zoning uses where you have two separate lots where the house is on one lot and you want to build an accessory structure on the other lot. Well, county zoning ordinances do not allow for accessory structures on vacant land. So what we do is we do this restrictive covenants or this deed restriction that combines the two lots that you can't sell them separately. So they're kind of linked together. You still receive two separate tax statements because there's still two separate parcels of land, but we record this deed restriction that says you can't sell these separately. Well, the Gerbers have found a buyer that wants to buy the lot containing the garage on it. So we're ultimately wanting to apply a conditional use permit to that lot that contains the garage. Now that within a 3-year time frame, they have to build a house on that lot. Because again, you wouldn't want just the accessory structure on vacant land. So another way to kind of view this is, let's say the garage isn't there right now. And we have an application that comes in and says, I want to build a garage first, and then within 3 years, I'm going to also build the house. I mean, that's really kind of the way that I would advise the committee to look at this situation. I have been in conversations with the owner, currently Gerber, as well as the agents who are the buyers. They do have full plans and they're ready to build. I believe they were looking at even a spring start of construction. They're looking at selling their house out of area right now and then moving up here full time. So I have full intents that they are going to follow through with this, but ultimately we would still track and monitor it. And regardless of who the owner is, that 3-year time clause would be applied to that land that's right now contains the garage. So again, the automatic conditions would be that the construction of an accessory building on a vacant property may only be allowed by conditional use permit with town and zoning committee approval. Granting of that conditional use permit will require that within 3 years that the principal dwelling land use permit is applied for and that principal dwelling is built within that permit timeframe on that same parcel. Failure to build the principal dwelling will result in citations and order for removals of the accessory structure. Again, this was technically for an after-the-fact conditional use permit approval. However, when the time that the garage was built, all structures in use were conforming to the Sawyer County zoning ordinance. Again, a unique situation in that the owners built a garage on a separate vacant lot and now want to sell it to a different owner. The restrictive covenants remains that this accessory structure is on that vacant land. And again, in order for it to be removed, the current owner would need to either remove the garage or alternatively be granted the conditional use permit. Again, another way of looking at this would be to consider that the land is currently vacant and new owners requested a CUP to first build a 32 by 36 garage on vacant land to be granted a 3-year time frame to build the primary dwelling. With approval of this type of conditional use permit, the zoning department would release the restrictive covenants and then track the permit timeframes for the building completion. As part of the list of my potential conditions is listed in my staff report that a land use permit is required and applied for the principal structure within 3 years of the date of the zoning committee's decision and then built within that permit timeframe. Failure to apply and or build would result in citations with potential order for removals of the accessory structure. That the current accessory structure not to be used for habitation, that the size of the accessory structure would not increase until the dwelling is built. The existing size of the accessory structure that remains is a 32 by 36. That a fire number or site address be applied within 3 months after the property is sold, and that the conditional use permit goes with the property and not just with the owner. However, that 3-year time frame would still remain. As action by the town board, motion was approved. Mark Bartlett, chair, Ken Susan, supervisor, Cliff Parr, supervisor. The township has no issues with the land owners using their property as they wish. Signed, Michael Myers, town clerk, or Michelle Myers, town clerk. There were 3 additional notification letters sent out to adjacent property owners. 0 comments or notifications back were received. That is all.
Okay. All right, I need a motion to go into public hearing on CUP number 24-023.
I'll make that motion.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Savitsky and a second by Ms. Wilson to go into public hearing on CUP number 24-023. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. We are now in public hearing. Is the applicant here? I think she's on the line. Oh, there she is. Okay, you want to step forward and talk to the committee? And if the kids want to speak, that's fine too.
I think everything's been pretty much explained. I bought the property to adjacent it to my current residence. And because of life changes, I would like to sell that property. And so it has the shed on it, and the potential buyer intends to build a residence there and move there permanently.
Okay, anyone have any questions? All right, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right, does anyone out there want to speak in favor of this CUP? Does anyone want to speak in opposition of this CUP? No hands, Andy, Jay?
Nope.
Okay, all right. Need a motion to come out of public hearing on CUP number 24-023. Mr.
I'll make that
Schuman.
motion, yes, sir.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Schuman and a second by Mr. Savitsky to come out of public hearing on CUP number 24-023. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. We are now out of public hearing.
This is the discussion action, the town of Weirgor, conditional use permit number 24-023, owner Margaret Gerber. Legal description is previously read into record. The request is to remove the restrictive covenants that was placed on the property in 2019 to allow for a garage to be built on a separate vacant lot not containing a dwelling. This would ultimately be a conditional use permit then to be granted a 3-year time frame in which to have an accessory structure on vacant land, subject to the automatic conditions as contained in the Surrey County Code of Ordinances, Appendix D, Section 4.26, Parent 1.
Okay. All right, committee.
I'll make a motion to approve CUP 24-023 with the conditions set forth in Jay's staff report and findings of facts 1 through 14.
Okay.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Savitsky and a second by Mr. Schuman to approve CUP number 24-023 with the finding of facts and on Jay's staff report. Any more discussion? Roll call, Kathy, please.
Steve Carriennen. Kay Wilson.
Yes.
Ron Buckholz.
Yes.
Marshall Savitsky.
Yes.
Tweet Schuman.
Yes.
All in favor? Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Okay, number 5, we have none. Number 6, the final plat review.
Yes, this is a public hearing in the town of Bass Lake for the Sugar Bush subdivision. This is the final county subdivision plat for a 7-lot proposal. It is located in government lot 1, lot 4 of CSM 30, page 39, volume 130. It is parcel 002-939-045108. It is 36.7 total acres, zoned residential recreational 1. Again, this is a public hearing for the final plat review. As part of the county subdivision plat process, the applicant is seeking to submit a plat containing 7 lots. This would be as a total of 10 lots from the existing parent parcel. The property consists of the Lakeshore Fishing Club on LCO. The property was recently sold to the current owner and applicant. There was an initial certified survey map that was recently done that took the 40.85 acres of the parent lot and divided it into 4 new lots. Lot 4 of that CSM contained the 36.77 acres, which is now being further subdivided into 7 additional lots, thus triggering the county subdivision plat process. As part of the zoning administrator's review, it was determined that there are 3 wetland complexes that exist on the property. This was confirmed by an on-site inspection. These 3 wetlands are non-navigable complexes, and they have a relatively defined boundary line. Again, there would be no earth disturbance permitted within the wetland boundaries, and that all other structures would need to maintain a 40-foot setback distance to the closest point of the wetland boundary. As part of the final plat process, they should be submitted to the zoning committee within 180 days of the preliminary plat acceptance. That preliminary approval was granted just a couple months ago. The final plat shall be presented to the zoning administrator at least 10 days prior to the zoning committee meeting. So you guys have seen this here for quite a while. We've had the final on there. It does meet all the requirements as shown on the original prelim plat. Approved final plat shall be recorded in accordance with the statutory requirements of section 236 of state statutes. I myself, the zoning administrator, and the Sawyer County surveyor have conditionally approved the final plat. All roads as part of this subdivision are to remain as private roads. If and when zoning committee finds additional information relative to a problem or concern is proposed by the proposed subdivision is needed, the zoning committee shall have the authority to request such information from the subdivider. Such additional information may include, but is not limited to, soil borings conducted by a certified soil tester, stormwater management plan under the provisions of NR 216, achievement of erosion control performance standards of NR 151, or regional flood elevations. The subdivider will need to satisfy all the requirements of all other federal, state, county, town laws and ordinances, including approval of the stormwater management plan from the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources for this development. The Sawyer County Zoning Committee approved the preliminary plat with no other conditions. At this point, Sawyer County Zoning Committee can do the following. You can approve the final plat in its current form. You can conditionally approve the final plat. You can table the decision pending additional information relative to a problem or concern, or you can reject the plat due to unstable or unsuitable land use and afford the subdivider an opportunity to prevent additional evidence for that suitability. I myself have deemed the application to be complete. That is all.
Okay. All right, I need a motion to go into public hearing on over the Sugar Bush final county subdivision plat for 7 lot proposal.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, we have a
Second.
motion by Mr. Savitsky, second by Mr. Truman to go into public hearing on the Sugar Bush. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. We are now in public hearing. Is the applicant here?
Yeah, and before we hear from the applicant
Okay.
in the public hearing, I should at least get this into motion into record as well. The town board did approve the request. Justin Hall, chairman, Marshall Savitsky, supervisor, Dave Albert, supervisor, Jim Evans, supervisor, Don Adams, supervisor. There were 6 additional notification letters sent out to adjacent property owner. No additional information was received. Thank you.
My name is Paul Banzik, 10644 North Rona Road, Hayward, Wisconsin. No changes since the preliminary round, so I don't really have much for you guys, but yeah, just looking forward to maple syruping, and yeah, it hasn't been any changes.
Any questions for the applicant? Yeah, go ahead, Ms. Wilson.
Is there an approved stormwater management plan at this point?
So I've had Stormwater out there, Heather Harrington and NWB's been out there. They've looked at it. They're all set to go if it's needed, but they haven't. We haven't finished the stormwater because we're kind of pending this. So.
Jay, is there any need to conditionally approve this or not?
I guess that's up to the committee. I mean, ultimately, the requirements of stormwater management and the requirements of the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources would be any land activity that disturbs in excess of 1 acre of land, which one could include that with the induction of the new roadway and development sites of these lots, they would be over 1 acre. Now, again, that is a separate entity, be it the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources, that still oversees those parameters. Once it goes over 1 acre, it's kicked out of county altogether. So yes, you could condition it, but it's still something that is going to be required by another entity anyway. So even if you approved, it's going to be required. Even if you conditioned, it's going to be required. So that's how I would end up phrasing that too. So either way, it's going to be required.
Yeah, what about those soil boring tests you were talking about?
That's up to you. I do believe there have been some soil tests. I'd probably end up deferring that to the applicant. I do believe there were a couple tests done by the existing structures that are out there. And I do believe those came back with suitable soils for conventional sewer systems.
Got it. Okay.
All right, do you want to state that for record? Were there soil tests that were conducted for drain fields?
So I haven't hired them, but the people buying the properties have. They have been good for conventional. So.
Okay, does that answer your question? To Ms. Wilson? Okay. All right. Thank you, sir. Is there anyone out there that wants to speak in favor of this? Sugar Bush? Anybody out there want to speak in opposition? Okay, if not, need a motion to come out of public hearing on the Sugar Bush.
Before we go out,
Go ahead.
I should get this in the record because we went over the town's decision, but there were additional comments there. It's more so their findings of facts, but I want to make sure that I solidified the town's findings of facts here on record. So motion was to approve the Pauly D's Maple Syrup LLC subdivision plat. It would not be damaging to the rights or others or hinder property values. It would not be detrimental to ecology, wildlife, wetlands, or shorelands. It would not create air quality, water supply, or pollution issue. It would be compatible with the surrounding use of the area.
Oh, okay.
Now you can go to pull out.
All right. All in favor to come out of public hearing? Aye.
Motion.
Oh, we
I'll make.
we didn't make that motion?
Yeah, I stopped.
Okay.
I stopped.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, I can get on the record. Yep.
All right. I need a motion to come out of public hearing on the Bass Lake.
I'll make that motion.
Bush.
I'll second it.
We have a motion by Mr. Savitsky and a second by Mr. Schuman to come out of public hearing on the Sugar Bush. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. We are now out of public hearing.
This is discussion action, Town of Bass Lake for the Sugar Bush subdivision plat, 7-lot proposal. Legal description is previously read into record. Again, at this time, the committee can accept, conditionally accept, reject, or table.
Okay, committee. What's your preference?
I'll make a motion to accept the final plat for the Sugar Bush.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Savitsky. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
And a second by Mr. Kiriainen to approve the plat for the Sugar Bush. Any more discussion? Roll call, Kathy, please. Oh, sorry.
That's all right. I just, I think that we should have the approval of the stormwater management plan in there as part of our conditional approval. Even though it will automatically happen, I think we need to make sure that that's part of the subdivision plan.
Hear that, Jay?
It's kind of a tricky one because it wasn't conditioned as part of a prelim, and that's not how the motion was initially stated. So this is as part of discussion, so.
But she can amend the motion right now, right? Andy? We got a motion on the floor and then Kay asked for an amendment to it to include, conditionally include a stormwater management plan.
Yeah, you can amend the motion, but what was it was not part of the original.
So it wasn't part of the preliminary approval, which that's fine because you can still condition the final.
Okay.
But the original motion was to approve with no conditions.
And that's, you have a motion and a second
For no
for
conditions,
no
correct?
conditions. Yeah, then you can amend.
Is that what you want to do, Ms. Wilson?
I would like to amend the motion to include approval of a stormwater management plan.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor to amend the Sugar Bush to stormwater treatment information. Any more discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carries to amend that. All right,
Rebecca, you got a hand? Probably too late, but
No, I would if possible, make sure that the applicant is fine with that condition, just so you have a clear record. The applicant is there.
do you have to for plat?
No, but I think just given the circumstances that the condition wasn't included as part of the preliminary plat, and now it is included as part of the final plat, that would be a nice way to close the circle, if you will.
are you okay with that?
Yeah, I guess I don't really understand what that means for me.
You can come up here to the mic and maybe she'll can explain it to you.
And what it ultimately means is that prior to the plat being recorded, you will need to have approval of a stormwater management plan from the DNR.
So I can't necessarily sell some of the other lots until it's completed.
Correct.
Is there a way we can conditionally approve with it in process? 'Cause we have started, we started stormwater, this fall, they've been on site. There's been a wetland delineator on site. I think the last steps, they've looked at the road. The last steps are to dig more soil holes for testing the soil. So basically perk test. So, I guess I would ask that we conditionally approve, that we can move forward with selling, but that the stormwater gets completed by a certain date.
As far as I guess I would end up viewing it, because the committee at this point conditionally approved the final plat pending stormwater management approval, I can't sign off on the plat until it's approved by the DNR, which the lots aren't created until the plat's recorded.
Right.
Now, we are still in the same meeting. We can end up reconsidering a motion, but it's up to the committee at this point as to what they want to do.
Jay, may I ask a question?
Yeah.
Yes.
Ms. Wilson's, the condition that was included in the motion, it doesn't set forth any additional obligation that one is in the state requirement, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so I think that the applicant would have to comply with the state requirements regardless, even if we didn't include that condition in the motion. So really, the situation hasn't effectively changed for the applicant. The county has just reaffirmed what is also a state requirement.
So I, as the zoning administrator, and Ron Buckholz as the zoning committee chair, can still sign off on the final plat, even though there is not an approved stormwater management plan on file with the DNR?
That's a separate legal question, because that requirement was part of the original motion anyway. I mean, effectively, they have to comply with all of the state legal requirements, i.e. the stormwater management plan from the DNR. So the amendment to the motion didn't change the requirements, again, effectively. So
Right, but I guess it's a timing process of whether or not, I mean, what comes first here, the cart or the horse? Do we sign off on the plat and then he still works with DNR, yet the lots are already created? Or do we wait until DNR approves and then we record the plat?
what would you have done prior to that motion? prior to the addition of the condition.
I would have signed off on the plat.
Then I think you can sign off on the plat.
I guess I'm wondering too why it wasn't put in there in the first motion. Now in this one, it's in there. I mean, this is the same committee that heard it the first time around.
Because we're getting smarter.
That's true. I understand that part of it, but I thought there was some language in there on that, Jay, that the applicant was doing all that stormwater stuff with the DNR. It has to have been done anyway.
Right, it's just whether or not, I guess the way I view it is if this committee conditions their approval, it's something that needs to be satisfied before you allow the zoning administrator to sign off on a plat. Versus the other way around is that you still need to comply with all other state, federal, county and town laws. We could still end up, going through plat rescinding portions, but I would have left it up to the applicant to, work out the process with the DNR. But if we condition the approval, now it's like, okay, what comes first here? Right. As Rebecca stated that, if I would have signed off on the plat, if this was just approved as the initial motion, you still have to follow all other laws, but those other laws, again, I guess I'm a little confused of what comes first in that process then.
Is there any way to clarify that, Rebecca?
Yeah, could you read back the specific language of the amendment to the motion? Let's hear that again.
Okay. Where am I at here? Wilson motions to amend the motion to approve the plat with a stormwater plan done by DNR. Second by Schuman.
Okay, so my interpretation of that amendment is that the county's approval is subject to DNR's approval, which is again a state requirement. The county should not be making a requirement that's preempted by the state anyway. So that's why I think, Jay, you can sign off on the plat as you would have before, because that amendment does not effectively change what has to happen in the process. I interpret that motion as a reaffirmation of what was already required by the state requirements, not a new obligation.
Okay,
Okay,
I'm good with that.
all right.
And does this allow the sale of the individual lots to proceed now or right after the plat is finalized?
Yeah,
Well, I would say that it does, but that also is a separate legal issue. So if the applicant determines to start selling the lots, if he doesn't have all of the state approvals, he's not in compliance with state law. And so that would fall under the jurisdiction of the DNR, in my opinion. So there is, yes, it is absolutely a proper question to be asked, but I don't think that that is something that the county can regulate beyond stating that the applicant has to require with all applicable state laws, which it has done that.
Thank you.
So Rebecca, if we sign off on this plat, isn't that saying that somebody could come back on the county and say, because they approved it? Or no, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, so essentially is there liability on the county's part for approving it?
Yes,
Right? Okay.
yes.
I would say no, because again, the way that your motion and the amendment to the motion was stated is effectively the applicant has to comply with state law. That is within your jurisdiction and authority to make that requirement. And so, no, I don't think I don't think your approval creates an additional liability exposure for the county.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion and a second on the floor to amend. Any more discussion? Roll call, Kathy.
We already approved it.
Yeah, you.
This was just a different additional discussion.
Oh, okay, well, good.
Which is appropriate as well. You can do that.
Okay. All right. Now we can do a roll call.
Kay Wilson,
Yes.
Ron Buckholz.
Yes.
Tweet Schuman.
Yes.
Marshall Savitsky. Steve Carrianen. All in favor. Thank you.
Thank you. A couple items for new business. One of the ones we heard last month was, so I'd gotten asked this proposal, this is 6 months or so ago. There was an individual that was looking at commercial storage units. This is out by the casino, across the street from Subway, by Dollar General and Advanced Auto in that commercial field. There's a larger chunk of commercial there. There's already some additional storage buildings being built there right now. But someone had asked, what would be the process for building larger commercial storage buildings that then I would end up condoing out, and that people could use that building as either kind of as like a storefront, as almost like I would almost view it as like a mini strip mall, or to have it as just, additional storage for themselves. So say Mr. Schuman wanted to rent a space, but he only wanted to store his boat and tractors in there. And Miss Wilson wants to use it, but she wants to open up, a beauty salon. And I'm like, well, that's a very interesting dynamic. And initially I said to them, you should probably check with the town as well to see if we can all get on the same page as how you make a condoed commercial structure and condo out these lots. The only thing within the zoning ordinance, the creation of a new condominium does have zoning committee approval as part of it. I wouldn't be looking or interested in actually changing the zone district to say like a planned unit development. I don't think that's, something that is needed, but the aspect of a condo commercial unit is something that's never been proposed to me. So ultimately I did have them check with the town. I do see the town chair here as well. And I do believe they had some initial discussions. But again, when this was initially proposed to me, this was 6 months ago, and I've not heard back from that applicant at all. I don't know if they're still interested in this or not. The other thing that's a little bit interesting within our ordinance is that the creation of a new condominium requires zoning committee approval. But once you have existing buildings on a structure, the conversion to condominium after is not needed for zoning committee approval, as that is just a change of ownership. So it's a little unique in how the process works. I don't know if you want to hear from the town chairman, because I don't know what discussions occurred at the town level for this proposal. But I wanted to make sure that the zoning committee was aware of kind of this weird concept that was brought to me. Again, I don't know if this is even coming to fruition yet or not, but I guess at this point I would kick it over to Mr. Kurtzwell.
Come on, Ben.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Benjamin Kurtzwell, 16040W West Lane, Hayward, Wisconsin. I'm also the chairman for the town of Hayward. I believe our October, November meeting, the applicant with this proposal showed up for discussion only to answer questions to our planning commission and has not been back since. So I'm not sure what the status is either. From the town point of view, we have some concerns because this individual is talking about doing storage unit type stuff with full bathrooms in them. And there's been advertisements where he's done this across the state where they're advertising, your own man cave, and potentially, I think the issues with the town of Hayward is, and I'm not sure how the Sawyer County zoning works out with commercial properties, but I'm under the impression that people can live in their commercial properties if they own a business. And that opens up a Pandora's box here with this, because I have seen similar from the same guy who's offering this, and I've seen his website where it could be for self-storage for items, or it could be like your little man cave where you can have a little home away from home, and it's just a hop, skip, and a jump between people starting to reside in those places. that is, I think, the town's main concern over this, is if we start getting a bunch of these little self-storage units that have full bathrooms, they're heated, insulated, what's going to happen for people starting to live in those? That's one of our major concerns. But Mr. Kozlowski is correct that I have heard something about this 2 months ago. I have not heard a word since. I thought it was going to come back to the town of Hayward and start going through the processes, but it has not. So I'm a little bit confused as to what the trajectory is of that also. I'd also like to say thank you for letting me speak. I would really appreciate an opportunity under letter C to address one more issue for the zoning committee, and I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, again, this was just under discussion. I mean, in the event that this applicant or this property owner comes back and wants to submit for, I guess, a request for condo commercial units, I mean, we would run that as a public hearing process through the zoning committee. Mr. Kurzweil is correct in that the zoning ordinance does allow for a residence at a commercial facility if that owner is actively engaged in a business use and or his immediate family is engaged in a business use. So there is a little bit of a Pandora's box where you're going to have kind of this mixing of uses in one larger building, where again, Mr. Schuman is just using it for storage. Ms. Wilson is using it as a beauty salon. Mr. Kurzweil is using it as professional office for tax assessment, but then also has a living quarters on the back side. It becomes a little weird, but I don't know if anything is directly prohibited within our ordinance. So just keep an open mind to this, and we'll see if we end up seeing a request. It's probably going to be a little bit cumbersome as to how it aligns with any kind of via zoning processes here. But I did want to, bring this to the front because it is something that we don't see a lot of this kind of stuff. So.
Right.
Item B, we have for tourist rooming houses with large number of bedrooms versus what would be considered as a hotel or motel. We did have some discussion via a Zoom meeting with Mr. Alvarado, Ginny Chayback, Ms. Wilson, Matt McKay, myself, and Rebecca Roker, addressing kind of what are the state requirements, rules, regs versus what are the county rules, regs when it deals with a building that has a considerably large number of bedrooms that's offering something as a short-term rental. So in conversations with Matt McKay, who was also in conversations with DADCAP, one of the language items that comes out is this aspect of 4 rooms. And once you're over 4 rooms, the state recognizes that's as a hotel motel. Well, in further conversations with DADCAP, what they're viewing as a room is as a separate keyed entry where you would typically find in a hotel setting, where room 101 is a room, room 102 is a separate keyed unit, is a second room, so on and so forth. The scenario that we're seeing now, and I'll be the first to admit, I don't like this scenario that we're starting to see. We only have one of them, thankfully. Washburn County has 4 of them. But there's an individual that has 14 bedrooms in one house and is renting it as a tourist rooming house. Everything that we've seen in the state doesn't point that this is as a hotel motel because they are not separate keyed entries. They are as one large building. They are offering the potential to rent just the upstairs, just the downstairs, or rent both of them. We have had conversations with the health department that they can't offer the upstairs to one party and the downstairs to one party because now you're renting 2 units, and the rental of 2 units within the current ordinance is viewed as a resort. But I did want to bring this back to the committee for additional discussion. There's nothing within our ordinance that I can see that would prevent this. There's nothing within the health department's aspect that would prevent this. They do have a sewer system that's sized for 14 bedrooms. So as of current tourist rooming house licensing, 14 bedrooms would equate to 28 people plus 2 would be 30. So the applicant has changed their website and they are advertising, I believe, if they haven't received their official license from the HHS department, they're very close to doing so. And they are advertising rental of up to 30 people. We did look around and Andy was able to provide some other documentation for adjacent counties. This isn't something that's rare. There's a couple out there that offer room rentals for 50 people, 60 people. I mean, these are basically mega mansions that have a giant number of bedrooms and a giant sewer system to accommodate it. It's not something that I preferably like, and they probably should get some other type of zoning approval process to do so, but there's nothing in current ordinance that requires it. So if this committee wants to dive further into these, larger rentals, ultimately we would have to set, a number of bedrooms that trigger additional approvals. What that number may be, I don't want to even throw a dart at that board, but I just wanted to bring it back to the committee's committee's discussion aspects of it, and I do believe there's probably a few other people that want to discuss on that as well.
Well, one of the concerns that I had for something, a mega building, think of the footprint on the lake. I mean, if they're going to add 30 people on a week rental, how many boats is that going to be? Then what the effect on the neighbors? It's just mind-boggling.
Okay. Anyone else?
Rebecca has her hand up here as well.
Rebecca, go ahead.
Yeah, I think I anticipate that all of the comments are going to be, very legitimate, very sound concerns. My one warning is that this is a difficult issue because should the county want to start regulating these types of uses, we're going to face issues of preemption. So on questions, even the setting of the number of bedrooms, that triggers some additional county regulatory process. That issue in and of itself, I have questions regarding preemption. So I just wanted to give that warning that I encourage you to have a good discussion and hear the public comments. But as you hear them, keep in mind that we're going to face some preemption issues if we move the discussion along in terms of what the county can and can't do to regulate all of these very legitimate concerns. Thank you.
Hey, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman, I'd like to hear from our chairperson of the tourist rooming house.
Yep, we got
Jane?
her on here.
Okay, please.
Thank you for including this item in your agenda today. As previously stated, my perspective on this is from all the work that we did from the committee standpoint for over a year. And we really never addressed this as an issue as part of that process. In my mind, it still continues to fall under zoning. Zoning still has a role in identifying what is and is not a TRH based on legal definition. This 14-bedroom barn dominium that was built in an RR1 zone district should not, for the sake of the permitting process, be considered a TRH. The ownership of the old Chicago Club, which is another one on Coudray that's 15 bedrooms, that one even has resort in its name. As an example of how we maybe could fix this, and I'm certainly not a lawyer, understand Rebecca's concerns, but is there any legal reason why the county couldn't change the definition of resort to add any cabin, cottage, or home with 5 bedrooms or more that is offered for rental? It's at least, it's not prohibiting this as a use, but it's at least giving it some more regulation and some more review opportunity for public hearing and for neighbors to speak. If the result is a subset of the 600 current TRHs go through a resort cup process, is that a problem? I don't know what a number would be. We'd probably need to look into that with Matt and get some numbers, but it's certainly less than 600. There's an opportunity here to close a loophole that could be very disruptive in an RR1 neighborhood. Whatever the solution is, and I'm just making a suggestion here, please continue to pursue something. What are the other counties doing? Looks like you're looking into that already. I just don't think it was the intent of the right to rent law to allow what is essentially a hotel in a neighborhood without proper zoning process. It's added stress on our shoreland, as was mentioned. Lastly, I really appreciate what all of you do to judge, legislate, and administer the county zoning code. It's a tough job, and these things are not black and white, and you're dealing with people's lives and livelihoods. And from that standpoint, I really do appreciate what you're doing. But if we have an opportunity here, I should say, but I'll say and, if we have an opportunity to change the zoning code to make it more in line with the current situation as they come up, we should take that on. I think the towns would be glad, honestly, to get some more clarification in these definitions.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Any questions? Thank you. Ms. Zomer?
And while Ms. Zilmer's walking up here, ultimately the formation of that ad hoc committee for multi-dwelling development, ultimately one of the aspects that has conflicting language is the resort definition. So there is an opportunity through that ad hoc committee that they could also address this other concern. So I'm just throwing that out there.
Good afternoon, Linda Zilmer, Edgewater property owner, and the subject property is in Edgewater, and I raised the issue of it from basically since the time of its construction, and it's probably been at least a year now. While I'm speaking, I don't know if maybe Jay or Rebecca wants to look up the definition of resort, because right now I believe the current definition of resort does cover this, and it also would include a single tourist rooming house, and it's not predicated on any number of bedrooms. This building, I would encourage you also to go out on the county's website, click on the property, and maybe Jay can provide you the address and the links, and look at the permits that were taken out. The permits were taken out for a single, I think the category is single or two-family dwelling, residential, and I think it was only supposed to have 12 bedrooms to begin with, and the initial spout system was a holding tank, and it was of a size to accommodate those 12 bedrooms. It's a large pole barn building, 2 levels of living quarters, and the one end is towards storage, towards the highway. I do not believe it has access to any trails or road routes. It's sitting on a highway where ATV, UTV, snowmobile traffic would not be allowed. So this will also have a potential impact on those large groups that are renting there, which I assume this would be catering to. So going on with how this was originally permitted, the owner has had other properties in Edgewater. He has quite a reputation. There have been other short-term rentals. So I would think in the step of when something like this was being applied for, the question should be asked is what is the intention of the use of this? And this gets to the kind of the loophole that the tourist rooming house ordinance does not capture, but zoning should. And then when it started advertising on social media, it was representing itself as 14 bedrooms. And then there was a change in the septic from a holding tank to a commercial. And in the second application for the conventional system, it is identified as a commercial property, a commercial use. So to just look at the narrow aspect of what DATCAP and the state considers is a hotel or motel, I don't think that's the question. It's when something like this, when an application like this comes into the zoning department. To me, I think that the first thing should have happened, similar to the storage condos. It should have come to this committee. What do we do when there are situations like this? I believe there are other properties in Sawyer County that are similar to this, but maybe not as many bedrooms. But it's very cost effective to throw up a pole barn and build out some sleeping quarters. And to have that in a residential district and have that built right next to you and have no say-so into something that large. Those are the other things I hope this committee addresses, as well as I believe the Sawyer County zoning ordinance under the definition of hotel or motel gives you discretion as to other things that you deem similar to. So I don't think you have to stick to DACAP's separate keyed entrance rules. And then, yes, it is tough. Where do you cut off the number of bedrooms? I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. All right, anyone else want to speak on that? All right, number C, any new business that may become before the board. Ben, you wanted to speak on this?
I got one other after him.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. Benjamin Kurtzwell, 16040 W West Lane. I apologize. I was going to be here earlier, and I was going to speak under public comment, but I appreciate this opportunity. The town of Hayward has an issue in front of them that we would love and appreciate guidance from this committee on. There has been an application. We have a property owner who has approached us over the last couple of months asking for a blanket special use permit. From my readings of the Surrey County ordinance, it is something that the towns cannot authorize, and the process was not exactly followed per the ordinance. After our last meeting, I did receive a letter from the zoning administration starting that process. However, I guess my concern is, as a chair for the town of Hayward, reading the ordinances, I do not see the town of Hayward can authorize a blanket special use permit. It does not seem that it's able to be authorized at all in the ordinance. And I am having a little bit of an issue here. I don't want to put something in front of my board that we have no authorization to vote on. I believe, and I've been having discussions with the property owner, and I've talked to Jay about this a little bit, I would really appreciate this committee, or perhaps legal, to give us, again, a clear path of how the ordinance is written, how we are supposed to approach this blanket special use permit request. Because from my understanding, it has never been done before in the county. The wording in the ordinance does not allow it. And I am very tentative, and I do not want to put my board in a position where we are voting on something that we have no authority to be voting over in the first place. So my feeling is right now, before the town of Hayward votes on this, we would really appreciate some guidance from either this committee or Surrey County Legal about this, because this is your ordinance that we are following, that we're beholden to, and we don't want to break it. So the county should be the ones to decide on this blanket special use permit, not the town of Hayward and the town around Lake initially. And that's kind of what's happened when the applicant has gone directly to the towns, as opposed to going through the zoning administration. So right now, I have gotten something from the zoning administration to start the process. I still believe, and again, I'm not a lawyer, but I do not see a route in the ordinance to authorize such a request. And I would like guidance from this committee and the county before the town of Hayward takes any action on it. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I can certainly address that. I'll share the screen there. So the special use application is required when someone is requesting to build within the agricultural 1 or forestry 1 zone districts. So this request came about initially from the preserve subdivision plat, where we had the 22 lot subdivision proposal, the 30 lot subdivision proposal as part of those different phases. Now, ultimately, all those parcels of land were to remain in the forestry 1 zone district, which requires the 5 acre minimum. So with the creation of the plat, the special use process still requires zoning administrator approval and town board approval. So from a common sense perspective, if you're going to approve the plat for this subdivision, fully well knowing that they're all going to be residential houses with residential structures on them, why not somehow give approval right then and there when you're approving the plat, versus having 30 different requests come back to the town for someone wanting to build a residential structure, which is ultimately still covered by covenants that are recorded as part of the preserve plat, still requires that setbacks are met with the zoning ordinance provisions. So what I have up on the board is the special use process for these types of considerations. The application for special use shall be made to the zoning administrator and then be forwarded to the town board for their review and approval. So ultimately, the applicant went straight to the town board and said, I'd like approval to, just kind of have this, blanket coverage on all the lots that are still zoned forestry. So we did kind of go, back a little bit and submit an application to the town for the blanket coverage. And blanket coverage maybe isn't the best word to use, but again, ultimately, every one of these lots is zoned forestry. Now, if the towns, have issues with this or don't think it's a correct process, then don't grant the blanket coverage. You'll see 30 or 22 different requests come in, and that's fine. If that's the route you want to go, then go that route. But the application for this, approval within the forestry zone district, specifically included as part of the preserve subdivision, was sent to the town. It doesn't say specifically that a land use permit needs to be submitted with the approval process. It does say, in addition to the information required, the land use permit, the zoning administrator may require that the applicant be submitted. So again, the application is there, but it says we may require that it's submitted with the land use permit as well. So I do believe that we are operating in a correct procedure, that you have an application in front of you for a special use permit approval included as part of the preserve. And I forget if you're phase 1 or phase 2. I get confused with the phases on that, but so the request is there. If you don't want to approve it, if you think there are issues with approving it, don't approve it, and we'll send each individual permit for each individual lot as they come through. I guess that's how I would end up leaving it, unless the committee has other questions.
No, I'm okay with that.
And I can circle back with Rebecca, but I don't think there's much other to what I stated there.
Okay.
The one other item under new business, unless there's other questions on that item, I have one quick one. We heard from additional public comment this morning about camping cabins. Just seeing if there's any appetite with the committee to further look into draft language that's specifically included as section 6.610 Sawyer County Code of Ordinances, Appendix D, where camping cabins, the construction, placement, installation, or use of a camping cabin shall be by land use permit issued to only licensed campgrounds. Camping cabins shall not exceed 300 square feet in area, shall not exceed 12 feet in height, and the connection to or installation of gas, water, or sewer shall be prohibited. We did see or hear a request in public comment for Mr. Robinson that is, I guess, asking the committee to look into that language to see if a change to that provision should be looked at. And I guess I'll ask the committee as to what process you want to see. Ultimately, Mr. Robinson came to me and was wondering, how can we change that? My process has always been, well, come to public comment and address the committee first. Mm-hmm. If the committee tasks me with drafting language, well, then I'll bring that draft language back to you to further review, have a public hearing process, and go through the amendment process. Unless you think there's a different process that the committee wants to see, for those that are requesting, well, how do I change the ordinance? Or how do I ask the committee to potentially look at changes? I guess I'm looking for your suggestions is how do you want that process to move forward?
Well, Jay, the way it reads right now, then like an RV can pull up to a full hookup site, right?
Yeah, so
Electric,
RVs
sewer,
are different.
water.
Yeah, so
I know,
RVs are
but-
way different than camping
So why
cabins.
would that be different for a camping cabin?
'Cause that's what the ordinance says, right?
I know,
Right. Park model?
park model.
Yeah, park models can do
I-
it. Park models can hook up. But the specific language of camping cabin says that they can't.
They don't have a kitchen, so
Yeah.
that's the only thing.
I would like you to look at some language.
Right.
I agree.
Yeah, and I can
There
definitely
you
do that. I guess from just backing up a little bit, we do hear, several people that says, well, I don't like that portion of the ordinance. How do I change that? I guess what process does the committee want to see for potential ordinance amendments. I mean, there's some things, where there's, conflicting language within the ordinance, such as MDD, which I brought, specifically to you, where there are other things, and we hear this quite a bit, with tiny cabins, or I want to be able to put a larger garage on my property without a dwelling. I've always told people in the past, well, come to a public hearing process and submit your public comments to the committee so that they can, gain that feedback and then either A, put it to the side of the road, or B, task me with coming up with draft language. That's been my process, unless you think there's a different route that you'd want to see those types of requests come through.
I think what happened this morning was perfect. He came, addressed his issue, we talked about it, and now we'd like to task you on changing
Yeah.
the language.
And that's the way it should be.
Because I don't want, something as far as like the tiny house movement, that stuff comes back and back. I think we've tried it twice in my tenure here of, allowing for smaller dwelling sizes. But I don't want to be the one that's pushing that, because, I don't want to be the martyr, as part of the tiny cabin movement. But if there was a citizen group that came in and made that push to this committee, and then you tasked me to come up with potential draft language, I think that's the most benign way of going about it.
But we don't want to waste your time or our time either.
Right.
Legal needs to advise us immediately whether that's doable or not.
Right.
Right? So we don't task you with something you're going to spend weeks on, and then pretty soon we can't do it.
Right. So.
Well, it seems like there's a lot of voice out there that our ordinances, sometimes I just think, and I don't know how we could do this, is just look at these and rewrite these old ordinances. I know it's a lot of work, but it seems like the ones we do have, everybody wants to change them.
Well, knock on wood, the camping cabin one should be relatively easy. I'll look at what other counties have as far as, I don't know if we need to mess with square footage or not, or height or not. I'll look at what other counties have, and I'll kind of have a couple different versions, but it's really just that one paragraph that needs changing. So, this should be, again, a more simplistic amendment process, but we'll see when we start diving into it. Right.
Okay. All right. Go
I
ahead.
have a question. He talked about room tax. I don't know where that came in with a camping cabin.
Yeah, I think they are collecting, the camping cabins do have a special, fee associated to them. I'm not a tax professional, so I don't know if they're getting collection, but they're not as your personal, equipment as a recreational vehicle. This is a structure that stays on site. So if they're collecting, income for you to stay in that cabin, that's different than you renting a space to pull your RV in. So I think that's where that room tax comes in. I don't know. That's not
Okay.
something I generally look at, so.
Any more? If not, thank you, everybody. We are adjourned.